Alright, so this is kind of an addendum to the first part of the tutorial. So one thing to keep in mind here is, so here's a filled region I've kind of made, and we're going to go over this in future versions, kind of going back a little bit here. But one thing I wanted to call everyone's attention to is keep in mind that you're not necessarily, so like we discussed before, there's filled regions and then filled patterns. So just because a filled region doesn't exist in here doesn't mean we don't have a pattern for it. So we're trying to go through and make sure we have all the filled regions matching to all the fill patterns, but sometimes it doesn't. So as an example, like let's say I want to do like ACT 24 by 24, for instance, right? So let's do that. Let's hop in here and let's take a look at the model patterns, and you can see there's quite a few model patterns. Like we don't have a well, we do have a cast stone, sorry, but we don't have a CMU filled region. We don't have a, hardwood flooring 01, hardwood flooring 02, hardwood flooring with nails. We don't have these filled regions in our template yet, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist in the project. They're in there as fill patterns, not filled regions. So let's say we want this ACT 24 by 24, say OK, and so let's say OK here, and then there you go. That's a 24 by 24 block, and because it's a filled pattern, we can kind of dimension these edges. And as oops, sorry, that's kind of a bad example. As I discussed in a future one, you can take this and move the edges of the patterns. You can align the edges of the pattern and so on. And because this is a model pattern, if I change the scale of the view, this will not change. It's fixed. So I think that's a good way to keep in mind. The last thing is, if you need to kind of get our most recent version of the patterns of the fill patterns, you can go into Manage and then Transfer Project Standards right here. Now the first thing you'll need to do is open up a version of our project template in whatever version of Revit you're in. So we're in 2019, so I'm just going to do File, New, and say DS New Project Template. Sure. Give it a second to upgrade from 18 to 19. It's going to pull all the information in from our current template, and then we're going to pull the standards from the template into the new file. So for just another second. Alright, there we go. So you're going to want to go, so here's our project template, and here's the project we're working in. We're going to want to do transfer project standards, and you see here, so you get transfer from, and so we just sort of started a new project, which is project 2, so that's fine. It might say project 1 or something, but whichever new project you started. I would highly suggest you don't bring all of these in at once. It's going to take forever, and it's going to do all kinds of crazy stuff to your model. So I'll do check none, and I only want to bring in fill patterns right here. And then if you want, you can also bring in filled region types, which is going to kind of bring in the filled regions, which is sort of that next layer up from this bottom layer of fill patterns. Hit OK, give it a second. It might pop up and say like, hey, this is the same thing. You say OK, overwrite, and there you go. Now I have all of the fill patterns and filled regions from the template file, or at least the ones that are currently available in my current project.